Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for continuing to listen to the show. We are here with another guest, another somatic intimacy coach. I'm so excited. So we have on Lorina with us, who is an MA and a SEP in somatic intimacy coach, certified somatic experiencing practitioner, and a PhD student in human sexuality. Perfect fit for the show, somatics and sexuality. I love it. With over 25 years in the healing arts, and nearly a decade experience in specializing in somatic intimacy. She blends somatica, somatic experiencing, PSIP, and interpersonal neurobiology to support trauma-informed, pleasure-inclusive transformation. Through her integrating Eros framework, Lorena helps people cultivate deeper intimacy, interdependence, and integrity in their relationships with themselves and others. And she's the creator of the Held and Fulfilled program, where professional empaths and space holders learn to own their desires and their boundaries while expanding their capacity to receive. And you can learn more about her at her website. It's www.lorinamanzanita. That's Lorina, M as in mom, Anzanita.com. We'll make sure to link that in the show notes for you. And you can explore her free mini course, Nourished, the Neuroscience of Receiving Beautifully. Really excited to jump into this episode with her today, so let's let her on in. All right, hi, Lorena. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I always love when people land in my inbox doing similar work and just blending the blend of the somatics with the sexuality is such a beautiful space to live in and to work in. And so thank you for the work that you do.
Likewise, sexual sovereignty. Mwah,
Mhm.
I'm into it.
Absolutely. So I'd love to just hear a little bit about your story. How did you land in the work of somatic intimacy?
I've always been into the body. I started off as a massage therapist, found myself studying cranial sacral therapy that easily led to somatic experiencing, trauma resolution work, and also in a classic wounded healer sense. I struggled around intimacy, sexuality. I think around like the first 3 years of being a sexual creature, I was anorgasmic.
Hmm.
Doing a lot of performative sex at a really young age, like
Hmm.
started off at 14. Um, and then in my own personal healing journey, which kind of collided or was infused by my professional healing journey, I discovered somatic experiencing, trauma resolution work, and years of codependent behavior, relationship patterns somehow found their way to unwinding, got unlocked. I learned how to own my anger and my boundaries, drop into my body in a whole nother way,
Hmm.
and all that self abandonment that I was so familiar with shifted. Not all
Hmm.
of it. Let's just be clear, I'm still
Hmm.
human.
Hmm.
But like there was a big dramatic shift when I learned somatic experiencing and was able to
Yeah.
clear out some trauma.
Yeah, it's just such a different way of doing the work, right? Like using my air quotes. I think you're right. We have said many times on the show before, like we can do your traditional talk therapy, and I think that is
Mm,
very beneficial and very helpful, of
agreed.
course. And
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, even for my personal work too. It wasn't until I got into the body,
Mm-hmm.
and got curious about sensations and what I was holding on to, and the emotion that was there, and then the imagery or the memory that was attached to it, and it's really wild, right? You think it's going to look a certain way, and then you're in the session with a practitioner, and then you're like, "Whoa, why is this thing from the third grade showing up?" Or I really like popping up for me, or this moment that I had like tucked away and packed away for so long that I thought was irrelevant is actually like
Mm-hmm.
making a bunch of noise in the background.
Yeah, and we didn't even know it. It
Yeah.
was like underneath the floorboards,
Hmm. Hmm.
creating a stink in the space. And until
Hmm.
we like dig in there by getting more curious about our bodies and our sensations, in some magical non-linear way, the stuff that was buried like finds its way to say,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, you're paying attention. I've
Mm-hmm.
got something to tell you."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What would you say is a common thread that you see in the people that you work with?
Hmm. I am working in this framework. I call it the 4 R's of fulfillment,
Mm-hmm.
which is like recognizing what we need and want, reaching for it, which is like anticipating that somewhere, something out there can respond to our needs and desires, practicing receiving,
Mm-hmm.
and also releasing the stuff that gets in the way. We just basically talked about the releasing the stuff that gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
But like recognizing, I find it's really common for people to not even know what they want. Like there could be all sorts of cultural conditioning, family stuff,
Yeah.
trauma. It can distort the signals
Mm-hmm.
around what we want. And it's a practice to learn how to recognize what we authentically want versus
Mm-hmm.
what we should want or
Mm-hmm.
what society tells us is important and valuable, and everybody is different,
Yeah.
and we need to like become really curious about ourselves and our unique wants and desires, and that requires a certain amount of experimentation and
Mm-hmm.
curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
So not one common pattern is not knowing what we want.
Yeah.
And then in terms of reaching is just like silencing ourselves, invisibilizing our desires, maybe having some sense, but like not believing anybody's really there for us and can really respond to our needs and wants,
Mm-hmm.
diminishing ourselves in the self-talk. Um, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
that's like reaching and then really receiving. Maybe there's an abundance of goodness available. Maybe we have a partner or partners that are really down to give us pleasure
Mm-hmm.
and all the good things, but then we like dismiss the compliment. We um like say stories about our worthiness that block really viscerally taking in what is
Mm-hmm.
on offer.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I hear often too from people like the pressure of when the partner is like, yeah, I'm here for whatever. Like just tell me what you want. Like that can also stir up that pressure and you're meeting yourself in the like, well, I don't know what I want. And
Right.
yeah, so sometimes that's not that I'm always down is not always the answer that we want from the partners.
Yeah, I think that for me, myself, it's like I've had a history of that feeling like a deer in headlights sort of
Hmm.
moment.
Yeah, yeah.
And I love creating safe containers for people to learn those skills, the
Hmm.
reach, recognize, receive, release in ways that are gentle, trauma informed, give people space to not be skillful or know
Hmm.
what they're doing, to be confused, to go through the grief of not knowing what they want. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't always look like it does in the movies, folks. Like I cannot say that
There's a really
enough.
bad education out there.
I know. And remembering,
Yeah.
yeah, movies are movies, they are not real. Like books are books, they are not real. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And yeah, and you talk about it. You work a lot with empaths, which I'm really excited to get
Mm-hmm.
to talk about on the show. But I want to start with something like you talk about pleasure as being something that can actually help prevent burnout in people. Can you speak a little bit more
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah. So, in my somatic experiencing trauma resolution background, there's a concept called resourcing.
Hmm.
And resourcing is intentionally focusing on pleasurable, positive, empowering people, places, things, activities, words, real and imagined.
Hmm.
And as we intentionally focus on those pleasurable things, it can have a way of soothing our nervous system, helping us feel more resilient and capable
Hmm.
of uh, navigating life's challenges
Hmm.
and the stressors of life. So, like, we're more prone to trauma and burnout
Hmm.
when the balance between resources and stressors are out of, yeah,
Yeah.
off kilter.
Yeah.
And then so we need to focus more and more on pleasure and empowerment in order to be able to deal
Hmm. Hmm.
with
Hmm.
all that life has for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. Like, and I like that you said that, like, whether it's sexual or not, like, pleasure can show up in many different ways.
agreed. Yeah.
What is the cost, would you say, of not being connected to our own pleasure?
Certain numbness.
Hmm.
Yeah. Depression, lack of vitality, stress,
Hmm.
um, a lack of creativity as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
Like, as I say, I work with empaths, many professional empaths, and as professional empaths, as a solopreneur, we need to get creative around putting our medicine out into the world.
Yeah.
And if we're burdened with all sorts of stressors, and not nourishing ourselves with pleasurable experiences
Hmm.
across the whole spectrum, then our juiciness is like
Yeah.
drained. Yeah.
Dull. Yeah. Not
Yeah.
juicy.
Yeah. On all the levels.
Yeah. 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 And just so for listeners, as we get into this, like, can you describe what an empath means and in the way that you're speaking about it today?
An empathic
Hmm.
people who are sensitive to how other people feel, which is a beautiful skill and asset.
Hmm.
And also, if it's not balanced with self awareness,
Yeah.
rooted in our own bodies, in our needs, and a healthy sense of differentiation between self and other, then we can overmerge
Hmm.
and lose ourselves in other people's
Hmm.
experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for empaths specifically, then, like, what does it actually look like for them to reclaim their pleasure?
Well, boundaries are a big learning curve.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's using the voice, but it's also um, like having a certain amount of energetic boundaries.
Hmm. Hmm.
I do a particular exercise where we imagine being surrounded in, like, it's like a energetic bubble and a semi. Tend to think of healthy boundaries as semi-permeable membranes.
Hmm.
So they like open for nourishment and close around toxic environments or not so healthy environments. And so it's
Yeah.
attuned to the present moment circumstances.
Hmm.
And then, so one exercise I'll often do with people is where we'll like intuit what our energetic boundaries are like
Hmm.
currently. Oftentimes when I do that exercise with people, it feels like, oh, like the right side of my body, like there's a big gaping hole.
Hmm.
And then the
Hmm.
left side, it's like thick and there's not much coming through. And so it's really kind of an interesting assessment process, tuning
Hmm.
into our energetic boundaries, and that often has some sort of metaphoric correlation with how we interact with the world.
Hmm.
So, yes,
Yeah.
empaths, boundaries, differentiation.
I think of that too, like just in the work of somatics, like something that I have learned is, and being an empath myself also, like very sensitive to
Mm-hmm.
surroundings and being in spaces with my husband and just being like, we have to go. I can't explain why, but like we need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And 13 years into this, he finally gets it and is like, okay, yes, I hear you. Let's get out of here. Let's wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, like noticing for in my body, like noticing and having that awareness within of, do I find myself like leaning into moments, leaning into the spaces that I'm in, or do I find myself pulling away, like but literally backing away, which is very wild when I first learned about this. Like, wow, just
Mm-hmm.
noticing like those subtle shifts and those two
Mm-hmm.
differences, or posture even. It's like do I actually feel safe here? Like, do I actually want to be here? Or, some of the previous narratives, like, am I just trying to fit in? Am I trying to keep the peace and not try to ruffle feathers? Um,
Mm-hmm.
or yeah, just wanting to be accepted, right? Like depending on what somebody's
Right.
cognitive story is. But yeah, I think for an empath, it's so important that we trust that intuition. And it might not make sense in the moment, but like hearing yourself, like your body is such a genius.
Agreed. Yeah, and that validation
Hmm.
of our needs and our instincts and tracking what's going
Hmm.
on,
Hmm.
like you said. I'm a big fangirl of Dan Siegel's work,
Hmm.
interpersonal neurobiology, and he defines the mind as the embodied process of monitoring and regulating energy and information flow.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. And what you're just describing is like that monitoring of like, what's
Yeah.
going on here? Am I leaning forward? Am I leaning back? Um, so you need to monitor. And then how do you regulate?
Hmm.
There's all sorts of different ways. Leaving the environment, taking a deeper breath,
Yeah.
recognizing how you're talking to yourself, making certain modifications
Hmm.
according to the needs. But if you're not paying attention to that somatic information, then it's going to be
Hmm.
hard to respond accordingly.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And sort of a story that I see come up a lot in clients is, and whether they're an empath or not, or maybe they are an empath and don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
But for the person that is more, right, I'm feeling these things, I'm sensitive to these things, and so I'm the helper, I'm the fixer, I'm
Mm-hmm.
the tender to care of others.
Mm-hmm.
Why does pleasure feel so unsafe or unfamiliar for the people that are so
Mm.
used to caring for others?
Yeah. You use the word unfamiliar,
Hmm.
which so connected to unsafe is like I think so many of us caregivers
Hmm.
were grew up in environments where our needs and desires and our boundaries weren't properly attended to
Yeah.
and responded to. And a brilliant and limited coping strategy was to make sure everybody else is taken care of. And then, so if they're better off, then we're safer,
Hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
then that is such a kind of ingrained pathway as a survival strategy. But it could feel unsafe because it's simply like unfamiliar. Like, oh, before on some unconscious level or some like somatic level before my needs were never met and now I'm in this environment where potentially my needs could be met.
Mhm. Jarring, yeah.
This feels vulnerable, it feels unsafe, I've never experienced this before. What if I
Yeah.
like start getting attached to this human being or to this feeling and it's not available anymore because it wasn't available then, and so
Hmm.
it's just like a foreign country almost,
Hmm.
and so we need to like learn how to trust
Yeah.
pleasure. I like to think of it as like developing a secure attachment to
Hmm.
pleasure.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And for people listening too, like if you resonate with this, knowing that you said this earlier, but it's a practice, like it's something that is going to
Mm-hmm.
take time. I think oftentimes when, especially in my work, people are like, well, what's the quick fix? Like what do I need to do? Like what do I got to do to get over this? Or
Right.
why can't it just come easily? The conversations around why am I broken? Is there something wrong with me? Just all the shame that comes up with
Mm-hmm.
this. And it's like, I love that how you put it. It's like, it was such a genius way of protecting yourself and keeping yourself safe, keeping the peace in the world and in the household.
Mm-hmm.
And now that you're an adult, like you matter. Your feelings, your needs, your wants, your
Mm-hmm.
pleasure, all of that matters now.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Definitely. It takes time and practice and repetition. Kind of like going to the gym or a dojo. I'll often think of my sessions as a gym kind of experience. Like
Yeah.
you're practicing taking in like support
Mm-hmm.
and empathy. What does it feel like to feel cared for right now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a clenching in my heart, and there's
Mm-hmm.
a tightness in my belly, and I could feel some tears coming up. And on some level, it's like, oh, that part of them that froze in the
Mm-hmm.
absence of empathy is starting to melt.
Mm-hmm.
And then so the not so great feelings that were buried start to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it takes time
Mm-hmm.
to unthaw. And yeah, one of the intentions for the program I'm developing is to create a membership where we, in the 6 week program, in the Held and Fulfilled program, we're learning how to cultivate containers for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the 6 week program, people can reach out towards each other to create little giving and receiving containers that are
Mm-hmm.
curated explicitly on what people want and what they don't want. So
Mm-hmm.
they're practicing
Mm-hmm.
sharing their desires and sharing their boundaries
Mm-hmm.
and practicing doing things like receiving empathy, practicing doing things like
Yeah.
expressing anger if a boundary's been crossed, but in a safer container.
Yeah.
I wanted to create a more accessible way where we can be held
Mm. It's beautiful.
and learn without the time pressure of a ridiculous amount of money and only
Mm-hmm.
50 minutes on the clock.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's beauty in that. And I think also just right, like these are essentially strangers that are coming together in this program, right? And meeting each other for
Mm-hmm.
the first time. I'm assuming they'll build some sort of rapport with each other over time. But I think that even right, like just bringing that dynamic in as well, building this connection and intimacy even with a complete new person in your life. And in doing that, like how that can translate into your then in-person relationships.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's ways that these healing containers can encourage us to unlearn old, unfulfilling patterns
Mhm.
and learn gently over time, learn new ones.
Mhm.
And then we get to imprint that into our nervous systems and grow those new neural pathways.
Mhm.
And then when they're more accessible internally, it's easier to recreate that in our non container
Mhm.
environments.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
it can be scary, right? Like trying in the containers where you are seeing the people on a regular basis, like partners, sibling, parents, like to put yourself out there, especially as you're learning this new way about things and setting those boundaries with yourself. Like it can be a risk essentially to put yourself out there and to try to set boundaries with people. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
it's scary, I think, for a lot of people. I've experienced
Right.
that, right? Even like getting a little sweaty, even just thinking about situations that I've been
Mm.
through. But
Mm-hmm.
just yeah, I think I'd like to give some practical things for people listening. What is a small way that people could start practicing expressing their desires or boundary even today if they wanted to?
Um, well, there was that exercise I described where people imagine that they're surrounded by an energetic bubble.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend playing with that
Mm-hmm.
and just like imagine, like notice what it's like to enter a room without that bubble, what's like to
Mm-hmm.
enter a room with that bubble intact.
Mm-hmm.
Most people notice a difference. Um, Also, like in the notion of practice, like if something feels edgy, you don't have to throw yourself over the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
There are this again, this is a term from somatic experiencing, titrated, which means kind of like small, measured, maybe edgy, but not overwhelming
Mm-hmm.
risks that you can take.
Mm-hmm.
So, saying something that's true, like, oh, that didn't feel amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
As yeah, so just like little risks, see how you received, some relationships don't have the capacity
Hmm.
to respond in a good way to us setting more boundaries. Some people have a lot of capacity to receive one's boundaries and vulnerabilities. And so
Hmm.
I recommend people test each relationship
Hmm.
in little ways, gather some information. If it's a good feedback loop,
Hmm.
then you can lean in more. But
Hmm.
no need to like totally light a fire on the whole of your life and relationships.
Fair, fair. And I think, yeah, like in my experience too, giving people more than one chance, like I think when I first started this, it was like I would say the thing, speak the desire, and if it wasn't met, I'd be like, well, all right, that relationship is no more. Like that doesn't, and yeah, that was younger, naive Rachel going through this and learning this for the first time. And now it's like, well, no, these relationships are actually fulfilling into my life. And so I think in some cases, it's like having a conversation with the person and saying like, hey, I shared this thing and it didn't land well, like that didn't feel good in my system, and then to be
Mm-hmm.
heard by them and to have that validation and hear from them like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't intentionally mean to hurt you, or I didn't even know that this thing happened in this way for you. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's really where these like deeper connections and relationships can be built, when you can share vulnerably, of course, right? Like, hey, this I'm upset by this thing. And yeah, I think I just feel so strongly in Brene Brown's work in the shame and vulnerability and courage. And
Right.
so I speak about her often on the show. I wish I could meet her in real life. That would be such a
Right.
dream. But yeah, just the courage that it takes for anybody really doing this work, like any work where we're getting more familiar, if you will, with ourselves and our emotions and
Mm-hmm.
truly who we are at the core
Mm-hmm.
takes courage.
Courage, time,
Hmm.
support.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yes. So let's see. You talk a lot about desires, and you talk about the building the boundaries. What are some of these bigger blocks that you're seeing that with the people that you're working in, they're when it's coming for them to really own their desires? And yeah, is there that shame of like, will I not be accepted? Will I not be wanted? What if I'm too much, or what if I'm not enough? Like, what are the things that come up in the practice that you see?
The first thing that came to mind was this disassociation.
Hmm.
We're familiar with fight and flight, and to a certain degree, freeze, which comes with disassociation.
Hmm.
So it's also a common symptom with really the more significant forms of attachment wounding.
Hmm.
With disorganized attachment, you're more likely to see some degrees of disassociation. So it's harder to know what you want. It's harder to advocate for yourself.
Hmm.
It's harder to set healthy boundaries. Um, if on a physiological level, on a nervous system level, at one point, your system was so overwhelmed with harms of neglect or some degree of violence or abuse where we shut down and then had to leave ourselves
Hmm. Hmm.
on some laying. Um, I don't think there's a lot of information out there in the world around how to come back to
Hmm.
oneself after leaving.
Hmm.
Um,
Is this the neuro savvy skills coming into play here?
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I wrote a chapter called From Disassociation to Delight in a
Mm.
book called Embracing Your Eros. You can find it on Amazon. I was one of multiple authors around the sexuality and
Mhm.
intimacy field. And yeah, it's it's a tricky thing coming back into the body. There's a lot of good reasons for us to
Mhm.
leave
Mhm.
in the first place. And so creating safe containers that have an understanding and respect for the need to disassociate and also have capacity to be with the hard feelings as
Mm-hmm.
well as the pleasurable feelings.
Mm-hmm.
um, as we make our way into here,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful gift, and it's not so obvious how to find those spaces and how to
Mm-hmm.
create those containers, or how to discern if somebody has the capacity to hold those kind of containers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and normalizing here like that receiving often feels harder than giving. Like that the receiving of love or care, especially if you were brought up in a household where that wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say this, and this doesn't mean that there had to be physical abuse present or sexual abuse present. Like this could have been any sort of like multiple siblings, for instance, right? Like having the multiple siblings,
Mm-hmm.
being the middle sibling, being the youngest sibling,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there's so many dynamics to where I'll use air quotes again, but like emotional neglect could have came up.
Yeah.
Mom worked a lot, like both parents worked, dad traveled all the time, right? Like
Late
there's
stage
so
capitalism,
yeah,
poverty, right? Like there's a
right.
lot of issues in the air that
Hmm.
make it really difficult
Hmm.
to give the quality of holding and attention and
Hmm.
attunement and support
Yeah,
for us to really thrive.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love doing, some inner child work with people as well. And another author that I follow, Nicole Pera, the holistic psychologist on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
her newest book is coming out, the Reparenting Your Inner Child. And so
Mm-hmm.
that is my next read. I'm really excited for that, but
Nice.
that's something that I would recommend for people as well. And in this, where there's many avenues of going down this work, but that concept of using the somatic tools to be able to track those emotions, track the sensations that's coming up, and relating them back to those early childhood experiences. And right, like now we're in our adult bodies, like we are in our
Mm-hmm.
adult selves, like we have autonomy and discernment here that we are able to use now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and agency and in we get to do that, and so it's not going to look perfectly, it's probably going to look messy, it's probably going to be scary, but I think
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the work that you're doing, the container that you're creating for people to be able to do this, I think that's beautiful to have a space where
Mm.
you are you like allowing yourselves to go there and you're getting support as you're going through that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, we, in a certain way, we internalize that neglect, and creating, cultivating relationships where there is a certain quality of
Mhm.
attention can help us have corrective experiences
Mhm.
in adult bodies where we have more choices and more
Mhm.
agency.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're nearing the end here, it sounds like you have some great programs and offerings for people. And so how could they
Mm.
connect with you and find you in your work that you do?
Yeah, they can go to my website, Lorina, Lorina, Manzanita, Manita. I forget to how to spell my last name sometimes. Um,
Yes.
um, um, and then I'm assuming there'll be a link because I created a little mini offering
Mhm.
called, it's a mini course called Nourished,
Yes.
the neuroscience of receiving beautifully. I don't have that tiny URL in my brain, so go ahead and find the link somewhere.
Yes. We'll
Um,
link it. Yeah, we'll definitely make sure it's linked in the show notes for people. So yeah, thank you so much for offering that. So it's easy for them to find.
Great.
Mhm.
And also the Held and Fulfilled program that I'm
Mhm.
offering. You can find that at integratingeros.com.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just a final message here. What do you hope that listeners walk away from this episode with?
More self compassion,
Mm-hmm.
um, inspiration to develop a securely attached relationship with their pleasure, and seek out and cultivate containers where they can nourish that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show today.
My
This was a real
pleasure.
pleasure to have you. And again, yeah, thank you so much for the work that you're doing and yeah, the containers that you're creating for people to do this.
Yeah, feels good. It's good to be here with you.
Mhm.
And thank you all for listening.